Good morning, everyone. We are thrilled to see you all here for our Tales from the Crypt webinar. For any micro accounting client who signs off on both an upgrade and the Cloud at Work hosted offering as a result of attending, you will get a reduction in the cost of your upgrade by $1,000. So after the webinar, if you're interested in taking advantage of that, please reach out to myself, Shalise Quinlan, or any of the account management team. We'll be happy to help you. We are recording the session, so you're muted, and each of you will receive a link to that recording upon completion of the presentation. If you have any questions during the webinar, use the question feature and we'll answer them as we go, and or via email afterwards if we run out of time, because we're cramming in a lot of information in a short space. But
Sounds like Deanna got cut off there.
Okay, no worries. Well,
yeah, so go ahead and start.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you everybody so much for your time today. My name is Tyler Bauer. I head up Cloud at Work, and we exist for really one reason: to create the absolute best IT consumption and cloud experience for Sage end users. We work exclusively with Sage end users and Sage partners, and micro accounting is a fantastic partner of Cloud at Work, and we're so excited to be here today. So thanks. I promise I'll make it exciting. It won't be a slideshow of fear. You know, we're in the Halloween season, but it'll be exciting. Please, at the end, if there are questions, type them into the chat. Possibly even maybe we could unmute the lines, but as far as the format of that goes, type them into the chat and we will get to them at the end. So welcome to Tales from the Crypt. Today, we're going to talk about security and different types of trends happening today in 2024 into 25. But first, I feel like it's always important for you to understand who we are, what we're all about, and how we started. So Cloud at Work, as an organization, we started in 2017. We began our journey really by creating virtual private cloud platforms for Sage end users. And this was at a time when really Sage hosting and Sage Cloud wasn't very prevalent. There were a lot of enterprise cloud organizations out there, IT organizations, who were focused on things like security, availability, redundancy, but those organizations weren't necessarily focused on any of the applications that live on top of that infrastructure. At Cloud at Work, we know that's what runs your business. We know that that's what creates the workflow and business process, which ultimately makes the business money. So we care very much about what sits on top of those servers. Then there were Sage cloud companies out there, and there still are. However, at the time and still to this day, I feel that in the space, in the ecosystem, there isn't enough emphasis of security, availability, and redundancy, and not a continuous motion of that. And at Cloud at Work, we strive to be on the cusp, on the foreground of really where things are going from a trend, IT consumption perspective for Sage end users into the future. So we built our enterprise cloud platform. Fast forward to today, we have about 1,000 customers. We trailblazed and worked directly with the Sage global teams, product teams, ISV teams. We were the first certified Sage cloud partner in the ecosystem in North America. And currently we're certified for all products and the only cloud partner to be able to boast that for 100, 300, X3, HRMS, fixed assets, 500, and that's both in the US and Canada. We've achieved our own SOC 2 Type 2 certification. So as we mature into the years, right, certifications, audits, compliance, they're becoming more and more important. So feel confident that working with Cloud at Work, we as an organization go through a SOC 2 Type 2 audit. We're actually going through that right now. You can tell the pain in my voice when I say that. So it is not an easy process. It is a big investment that we make every single year into our customers and our partners to make it easier. So on saying that, let's shift gears into the cybersecurity world. Everybody, when I give this presentation, usually I do it in person. Um, Everybody has a story, right, about cybersecurity at this point. Either they've worked for an organization who has gone through an attack, possibly somebody who's gone through an attack. Maybe you've seen something in the news, but obviously we're aware of security today. And interestingly enough, every single 11 seconds, there's a cybersecurity attempted attack. And 74% of the data breaches of the actual successful attacks are a result of human error. So when we think about, this new world of AI and this new world of automation and technology, still, humans that are affecting really the outcomes of that technology and of that process. So something to be very much aware of. Now, what is the impact, right, of these attacks? Obviously, it's a pain in the butt, right? Nobody wants to go through this. It can cost us a lot of money. It can cost us reputation. But the after effects, the ripple flow, show that about 40% of companies who have been severely impacted by a cybersecurity attack are forced into downsizing their workforce. So either changing or completely eliminating positions just to really solve for maybe a financial issue or possibly a process issue. 72% of business worldwide were affected by an attack as of 2023. So that goes back to my point of, everybody knows somebody or has been attempted attack or attacked as of 2023. And as well, currently, as we stand, 70% of organizations are being served malware ads or actually have a threat currently in their system today. A lot of times, what we think about with cybersecurity attacks is the traditional ransomware, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but it's become more and more sophisticated, and we're going to get into some of those points now. So, if we know it's a problem, right? We're obviously, aware of it. We have brilliant people who are focused on it. Why is it such a hard problem to solve? Well, mainly, in my opinion, it's a shortage of talent. When you look at, organizations who are manufacturing tires, or an organization who's distributing goods, or an organization who's providing, services to a community, those organizations and the talent pool available to really structurally focus on cybersecurity and technology consumption for those businesses is very short. All of the best talent are going to work for the government, right? For individual organizations within the government to protect, assets within that country, and then the rest are going to work for service providers or major big tech companies who are delivering platforms or delivering software that create that security element. So, about 20 years ago, when the traditional ways that we would solve for IT needs is go and hire an IT person, those days are kind of done, right? As far as the generalist being able to be an expert in all aspects of IT. Security is being one of them. It's ever changing, and it's becoming a very difficult problem to grasp and solve for. Now, the second piece that I'll talk about is, I think, a little bit of naiveness in a lot of organizations that I talk to. About 10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe, I was first introduced to the idea of cybersecurity insurance. And insurance companies, if you ever want to know where the world is going to be in 5-10 years, go look at what insurance companies are focused on. They'll tell you just by the products and services they're looking to insure. And early on, it wasn't very widely adopted, right? We had the notion, and I'm sure all of us have felt this at some point, well, they're targeting Target, or they're targeting, governments. They're not going to target me. I don't have anything for them to get. And so slowly but surely, we started to realize that wasn't necessarily stealing things. It was more creating an environment of panic and as well a vulnerability. And so more and more companies began to adopt cybersecurity policies. Now, fast forward to today, cybersecurity policies are being used now more than ever. And companies feel that they're taking care of their security posture by increasing their security policy. Now, while that will cover you financially, nobody wants to be reacting to an attack based on things that could have been prevented by certain structure, process, and technology. And more companies are now feeling the effects of the insurance company dictating what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. For an example, they're dictating now the technology and the process that companies, their policyholders, have to use in order to be covered. A good example of that is dual factor authentication. So if you're using dual factor authentication and you're impacted, chances are that you'll have coverage for your attack. But if you're not, actually insurance companies aren't following up with that coverage. As well, thinking about the process, there's a very specific process of how you have to react to an attack. And those policies, if that process isn't followed to the T, your policy can be voided as well and your claims can be denied. So just things to think about, the ways that maybe 5 years ago we prepped our organization for a cybersecurity attack or the threat thereof isn't the same anymore. We need to really be thinking about the vulnerabilities and ways that we can improve it ourselves. The reason for that is because, in my opinion, this is not going to slow down. Cybersecurity is going to compound at a compounding rate, mainly because of AI. So when you think about the sheer volume of attacks that happen just due to automation and having not to include a human body looking at researching and automating, but instead having machine learning look across millions of devices, millions of organizations all simultaneously, it makes targeting easier. It makes customization and personalization of those attacks easier. And as well, it allows these organizations to get more focused on code generation in order to exploit those vulnerabilities that they see trends in across the ecosystem. Now, one way that AI is impacting the cybersecurity world is it's actually becoming a layered economy. So similar to how we have software as a service and infrastructure as a service, there's ransomware as a service, and there's layers to it. So there are operators, brokers, and affiliates that really aren't doing or enacting any type of cybersecurity threat to your business. But what their business is to basically find templates, push those templates out, find vulnerabilities, and then sell them to the highest bidder. So when you think about, having, this kid in their parents' basement in a dark basement with their hood up, just going around business to business trying to find vulnerabilities, it's much smarter than that. These organizations have full help desks where you're going to call in once you're affected, and there's somebody talking to you on the other end, talking you through in a polite way. It's not even that deep, dark, groggy voice that is hiding it. It's a very big business. So now these organizations are splitting out, where they're layering out the focus points of what they do in this industry. What this is allowing for is mass wide attacks to happen more frequently in a wider ecosystem as well. It's so sophisticated that there's actually a sales funnel. So similar to how we forecast our own business, these organizations within this economy are forecasting how they can, and down to the T, using AI and automation, how they can actually infiltrate an organization. So if we have 25 potential targets, we're going to encounter 60 organizations that are associated with a ransomware attack. There'll be 20 successfully compromised, and we'll find one organization out of those 20 who is not taking the proper steps, and we can encrypt and enact an attack. That being said, 99.99% of all of these attacks that happen to companies are very, very similar, right? You've heard of phishing and how you just cast the wide net. Most of what we're talking about here is looking for companies that aren't investing, aren't prioritizing their posture in the security world today, or even their infrastructure, different nodes of the network, the Internet of Things, etc. We need to be very, very aware of the assets that we have, the people who have access, and as well the human behavior of those individuals. So if we had to focus on three things, if you brought me in and you said, Tyler, listen, I get it, stop scaring us with all these things that are happening, what can we focus on to make our lives easier and to put us in a position? Well, the three things that we need to focus on of threats are the business email compromise, right? Big deal. Ransomware, as well as the human factor. If we can focus on these things and put process and solution around these three things, you are going to be in a position, a very, very good position if an attack would happen to you. There is no iron shield or iron curtain that can go over your business where you're never going to be susceptible to an attack. However, we can do things to make sure that you're not in a vulnerable position, and we'll talk about those in a minute. So the first is business email compromise. What is it? Well, business email compromise is similar to like a phishing attack. However, they're looking for ways to essentially target usually executive individuals within an organization to then be able to, look at their signature style, their email template styles, and be able to then capture those credentials, log into those credentials, and then actually send on behalf of those individuals to either vendors, customers, employees, asking to wire funds, asking to do different things. Typically, what happens when business email compromise is an impact to the organization, once we know a certain individual is infected, typically there has already been a mushroomed out effect to either other vendors, customers, other people within the organization, and it just balloons out. It's kind of spreads like wildfire, if you will. So clicking on links, human behavior, it's very typical. But if it's coming from a trusted person, sometimes people are like, oh yeah, I'll click on that link. And before you know it, now that individual is compromised as well. And it just balloons out from there. So again, back to human behavior. One example of this that I've seen, and I've been doing this for about 20 years, is we had a customer who, prior to working with us, was primarily focused on manufacturing goods, we'll say. They had an executive team. The CFO would travel a lot for work and connected in at a local Starbucks. When he connected in from that local Starbucks, he accidentally clicked on a public Wi-Fi that looked to be legitimate. However, it was not. So again, human behavior, connecting in from, very public Wi-Fis in airports, Starbucks, etc. They look like they're legitimate from the business. However, in this case, it was not. When that individual connected in, quickly their entire machine was now turned over to that organization. However, the organization didn't shut down that machine and hold and encrypt that device. They sat and waited. So they were able to track keystrokes. They were able to track behavior and look at access to different systems. And before you knew it, they gained access to the financial application as well as the CRM. And from there, they began to do research within the organization to find a vulnerable customer that they could then craft an email from their Office 365 account on behalf of the CFO requesting payment. They found that target. They sent wire transfer information to that client, and that client will just say, was very clear that they were not positioned correctly for technology consumption just based on their website presence, based on the type of business they were, and the client paid it. And that was about $180,000 that the client paid to a fake bank account that was not associated with any invoice. Now, as a CFO of an organization and the owner of an organization, you have to go back to that customer and explain, right? And from there on out, it just continued to balloon. And that's never a position any of us want to be in when we're talking to a major customer. And I'm sorry, we did not take our cybersecurity serious, and you were actually just sent over $100,000 to a fake account. Not something we want to talk to our customers about. So that being said, ransomware is a little bit different. Ransomware is a little bit broader. I think most of us have this is the probably most common type that we've seen. But when we look at infiltration, reconnaissance, lateral movement, malware installation, staging and scanning, and encryption, these are the typical steps that are taken. This is more of a wide net, cast it out. Okay, who clicked on the link, who doesn't have the proper steps, the proper backups, the proper positioning. Okay, let's install malware, let's sit and watch. Okay, this is the perfect time, let's encrypt. Now, this is getting smarter to the point where they'll sit and wait. They'll actually see when, licenses for, certain software will expire, or they'll sit and wait and see that, okay, you're sitting on a Windows Server 2012, and after October, the security patches will expire for that. Great, this is a perfect time. We'll put you in the pipeline. So something to be aware of. This isn't an instant gratification. This can be very calculated as well. One instance of ransomware, just to give you an example from a completely different side, I worked with an organization a while ago as well who was in a very highly regulated industry in big pharma. They for sure took cybersecurity seriously, for sure took their technology serious. They had infrastructure in AWS, in Azure, and on-premise. The organization had a layered IT organization, I would say very, very bright organization. One day I got a call from the CIO, and the CIO had asked for my help. Now, luckily, we were hosting their Sage infrastructure that ran their production, and quickly we were able to sever the ties between their local environment and their Sage application. We were able then to restore their Sage application within minutes and have them connect confidently and securely to their business apps, as well as with all their customer data, etc. However, the rest of the organization and all of their AWS and Azure deployments were impacted by ransomware and encrypted. This all happened because of a old Windows 2007 server that was unbeknownst plugged into the network. And very quickly, when that license was expired, they enacted the encryption that quickly ballooned out across their network and gained access to all data that was residing on their network. Now, unfortunately, for their Azure as well as their AWS and on-prem environments, they housed backups within their production data or data center on site. At Cloud at Work, we use geodiverse backups, so we were able to restore very, very quickly. But this is a good example of an organization who has a very, very strong technology stance. However, just by forgetting one asset that's plugged into the network, really no human interaction, just a device that was plugged into the network that was not being managed properly, took down an entire organization. So something, again, to be aware of, asset management and behavior of those assets. So that being said, there's some good news. At Cloud at Work, we specialize not only in how we can host and create a phenomenal cloud platform for your Sage ecosystem, but we are a full IT as a service platform organization. We focus on, on speed, skills, scale, and spend in order to really help consolidate and create a very, very affordable, best practice IT consumption model for your organization. Now, we do that through our 5 core products. The first is our virtual private cloud, which we talked about. This is the first iteration of product that we deployed at Cloud at Work. We really exist, and this is a theme across Cloud at Work, to reduce layers of IT consumption. So when you think of all of the different pieces of IT within your organization and applications, you have these layers, and it creates complexity in how you want to support it. Before you know it, as a customer, you're trying to juggle these vendors to come together into one solution. And we can simplify that through your Sage Business Partner micro accounting in order to help consolidate that consumption. We are a cloud expert in a data center. We are a certified cloud managed organization. We work directly with your application providers and ISVs, and we are directly integrated to your business partner. So when you're consuming this workload, it's so much simpler to put that onto Cloud at Work. These are just some statistics. I apologize, we're running out of time, so I'm going to kind of fly through this. But these are some stats, some SLA items around our virtual private cloud. Very, very robust, purpose-built for application performance, security, availability, and redundancy. This is a look at some of our data centers. We have 4 data centers, 2 in Philadelphia, 1 in Dallas, Texas, as well as another in Toronto or Barrie, Ontario. Now, a lot of our customers came back to us saying, Tyler, you've done such an amazing job with hosting our Sage. However, we want to feel those effects as well as bring that into a similar SLA for the rest of our IT infrastructure and applications. And so we launched IaaS at Work, which we've partnered directly with Microsoft Azure. We've added our security and our expertise on top of that platform to manage that in a coexisting agnostic way where you can get the best of breed of scale as well as financial benefit to put maybe non-critical workloads into Azure and put your most critical workloads into Cloud at Work. This now eliminates the need for IT infrastructure on site and takes you out of being vulnerable or having to worry about the redundancies as well as the availabilities of that infrastructure. The next piece was clients were asking us, hey, we don't want to connect to this IT infrastructure in the cloud, VPN or RDP. We are looking for a really managed solution. And so we built our own proprietary desktop as a service offering. Now, this includes things like IT managed services, as well as all of these security functions like multi-factor, SentinelOne, a fully managed SOC and NOC, as well as completely isolates the device. So when you're talking about computers, right, those are still vulnerabilities. Remember the CFO logging into the public Wi-Fi, and now that device and all of the data and information living on that device became vulnerable. Well, what if your computer was actually in the cloud and the device that you're using to connect to it doesn't matter and will no longer be a vulnerable point? We can centrally manage all of the access and manage the security and the traffic coming in and out of all of your most critical information. From there, a lot of organizations were coming back to us asking for a way to bridge the gap to become their local IT organization. And so we actually have the capability to become that, to handle your local networks, to manage your vendors like your ISPs and all those other pieces, and as well begin to formulate through our technical account managers and VCTOs a really strong cybersecurity posture and framework for how data is handled, how information is accessed, and how we really are going to move our organization forward. We really look at ourselves as your technology partner and tour guide. And then finally, we wanted to create a wrapper, a cybersecurity as a service platform that didn't force you into engaging with us into a project, but rather gave you tools and a recurring model that allowed you to consume all of the cybersecurity needs that you would need as an organization today. So we focus on collecting, detecting, and response. So we're going to be there to not only understand what traffic is happening, we're going to detect any type of threats within your organization. We're there if we have to respond, but our goal is to make sure that those threats never happen. Real quick, this slide I think talks very strongly to our pillars of product and solution. For companies that are traditionally impacted by a business email compromise solution, which we talked about, the overall impact could be a 1 to 2 month process to really figure out the depth and width of how far this solution went. In Cloud at Work, we can solve that within 1 to 2 hours. With identity theft, it typically takes 3 to 4 weeks for an organization. At Cloud at Work, we can do that between 1 and 2 hours. Malware infection resolution can take up to 3 to 4 weeks. We can do it in less than an hour. Insider threats resolution can take up to 3 to 6 months to find threats within your organization. We can do that within less than 4 hours. And extortion resolution without XDR, who knows, for an organization. With us, we can do that in less than 24 hours. So making real business impacts with an SLA that guarantees success, all with the most important application that is running your business, Sage, in mind, and being able to consume all of those IT services in one place for an affordable price with a guarantee behind it, I think is very, very valuable today. I want to thank everybody for your time. Really, really appreciate it. Sorry for going a little bit over, but certainly if you have any questions, please type them in. Really would love to answer those for you.
All right, thank you, Tyler. Really great session. And thanks everyone for attending. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.